Welcome to Audrey's Take. My name is Audrey Gajepo and I'm an associate professor at the School of Communication Studies, University of Ghana. Today we will be discussing the media. The media is one of the key ways in which we get information about what's happening locally, nationally, and internationally. And we also rely on the media as a pillar of accountability to hold the powerful people and institutions who govern us and who influence our lives accountable. The question, though, is how responsible are the media and journalists who work in the media? How ethical are they? Today, journalism practice is very challenged because we have social media also as part of our news gathering operations. There's Facebook, there's Twitter, there is WhatsApp, there are cell phones and text messages, and often news breaks on social media, and of course the World Wide Web, the internet. How well do the media sift information to make sure that what they bring to us is credible, reliable, and in the public interest? We're going to be discussing these issues on today's show. To help us in this conversation is to my immediate left, Mr. Evans Mensah, who is assistant editor at Joy FM and very familiar to a lot of you listeners and viewers. And we also have Ms. Kina Likimani of Blogging Ghana and Imbasem and an avid blogger. And finally, we have a citizen who actually is also a procurement specialist, Mr. Collins Ajima Sapon, and he is an avid consumer of Ghanaian media. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
And we're going to just relax, discuss, and I assure you, viewers and listeners, you're going to have an exciting time. And I think I'm going to start with you, Evans. Mm-hmm. And a good starting point is a recent event that your news organization, as well as others, covered. And I'm talking about the photographs of the late P.V. Obeng that were circulating. They went viral, as we say, on social media, and it was picked up by traditional media. And it caused a lot of offense, not only to the bereaved family, but also to a lot of Ghanaians that thought it was distasteful to take a picture of somebody in that state and to disseminate it in the public domain. So we want to start with that because it raises issues about how professional, traditional media use social media.
It's an interesting example because that picture, as you rightly noted, first surfaced on social media. The man had died, and speculation. It's also interesting to note that the breaking of that story itself first happened on social media. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing that happened to me. I was working that weekend, and around 2 o'clock, I got a call that the late P.V. Obeng, may he so rest in perfect peace, had died. As a journalist working in the mainstream media, you can't rush on air. So you had to first confirm the story. But by this time, it's gone viral already on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. And so there was pressure. My boss was calling, wanted to break in the story. I'm like, I need to confirm either from a family person or from a government person before I can go on air and break the story. And this process took us, eventually got his brother who said, I'm on my way to the hospital. Yes, he collapsed, but I can't tell whether he's dead or not. It took us an additional 2 hours to finally get hold of the information minister who then confirmed by says, hold on, I need to check again myself and get back to you. I had to wait around the additional 30 minutes. Eventually, he calls back and says, it's true, I'm going to issue a statement. You can go on and break the story. And this was around 4:30. There was an entertainment show going on at that time. I had to get them to interrupt the show so that I can break. And then when I go into the studio, the panel that were discussing all these entertainment issues, I go into the studio and immediately I walked in, the guys were like, oh, dead news. We know what you're coming to say. And this is exactly how it went. We know what you're coming to say. But this thing had been on, and it was on air. It was an informal entertainment conversation, so they can do everything. And I felt, and then one of them said, it's You'll be right, he's dead, right? We saw this like in the morning. You guys are so late. Then the host was like, okay, keep quiet. Let's allow him to say what he has to say. Then he said, should I play the breaking news jingle? I was like, no. Again, the reason I'm not playing the breaking news jingle is it's really not breaking news anymore because it's already out there. So I announce it, and I go. Then the picture then surfaces on social media in the evening, circulating. I saw it. We had an online platform. Should we use it or not? It's an ethical decision we had to make. Because then the government official statement had not come. I'm assuming the family, possibly all family members, have not been informed. And for me, my estimation, that information process must go on. The family must know before eventually a picture like that is gone. It's published in the mainstream. Then the following day, we didn't publish the picture at all. And the following day, it was in the Daily Guide newspaper. And then it caused a stir. The ethical question that the GJA raised and the NMC raised is that it's offensive, it's obscene because it's part of the code of ethics. And Daily Guide says, well, it's not. I am in the middle because I saw the picture and I want to judge the offense, the extent of the offense, based on the picture itself, not because a dead body was published. And this has been done several times across the world. Media organizations publish pictures of dead people all the time. And there's a reason for it, because in mainstream journalism, you can't just say the person is dead without giving evidence. And the picture is evidence that indeed the man is dead.
Okay, Evans. No, in some context, you publish a picture of a dead person if the manner of death is part of the story. In a case where somebody like P.V. Obeng has died and his body has been conveyed to the mortuary, you don't go and surreptitiously publish his picture. It doesn't add to the authenticity. You have already done what ethical journalism requires, which is you have verified with family members, you know it's true, perhaps there's a statement from the family on his death, and you can show a picture of P.V. Obeng to familiarize your viewers and your readers with who you're talking about, but not the dead body. It adds nothing to the news, and indeed it is unethical. It causes more pain and harm than adds to public understanding of what happened.
Okay, so I'm looking at it based on the picture I saw. The picture I saw is a man who was covered. The only part you see, you hardly see the face. The only part you see was covered up onto his, almost the entire face was almost covered with a white cloth. Okay, and it wasn't. And I'm looking at it strictly based on how the picture was used. It wasn't on the front page. It was the middle pages. And that tells me, and we didn't publish the picture because I felt, well, the possibility of offending is very high. But look at the way the newspaper that published used it. In the middle pages, not on the front page. And I'm thinking for them is, if you put on the front page, yes, the gravity of the offense might be higher.
So you're admitting there's an offense?
No, there is.
Except it's a question of gravity.
That, I stated in the beginning that I'm in the middle here. Because we publish pictures of dead people, unknown people. Are we taking offense because it's a known individual? Is that what it is?
No, and I think, again, it is the kind of picture you have taken of whoever is dead, whether they are known or unknown. And I think that, in this case, the public uproar about it has been magnified because of who it is. But I'm going to let Kina weigh in so that we don't have a two-way dialogue, and then also to bring Collins in. Kina, what's your take?
Audrey, I so completely disagree with Evans because, and yes, pictures of dead people are published all the time, but you have to look at the context. And the publishing the body of someone, by the time Daily Guide had gone to press, the family had confirmed Mr. P.V. Obeng had died. The government had issued a statement. Mm-hmm. He was indeed dead. Mm-hmm. How more sensational can his death be? It doesn't add to any more. It doesn't add to information. Everybody has confirmed this distinguished Ghanaian has died. We have become desensitized to dead bodies on our papers, right? Because these days, even when there's a fire, they say a house burned down, 2 people died. As though that is not enough, they have to show us the charred bodies. Publishing somebody, this is not a national security issue. It is not in the national interest. It doesn't further, what does looking at the picture prove? That he is indeed dead, that has been confirmed. And if anybody wanted to go looking for PV or being on site Sunday morning, they would not have found him. The man had died. It is a gross violation of not only his privacy, but of his family's privacy. It exacerbates the pain. And we don't need, and you know what, once a picture, it was so wrong for somebody to have taken this picture, and I hear it started on WhatsApp. Because once it's there, it cannot be removed. This is forever part of, if you do a search on PV or Bing, this is what you will get. And it added nothing to the conversation, did not relieve anybody of pain. In fact, it caused further pain. So no, I completely disagree. It did not serve, it doesn't matter if it's at the front page, the middle page, the in-between pages, the back. This added no new piece of information, and it hurts people.
Collins, you are the consumer.
Yes. From our culture, I will also say that it was wrong. And again, for us as consumers, some of these things show the desperation of the journalists. They want to show people that they have the information. But at times, it looks like a joke for us. Because I saw that thing on WhatsApp. A friend sent it to me, and I was like, and so what? So I did not even forward that picture. So for the media, maybe there's an advice. I know that people want to show that they were able to go to the hospital or to really see the body, just to prove that, yes, they can investigate. You call it investigative, whatever. They can investigate and bring you the story. But some of these pictures looks to most of us as joke, as if the journalists, they don't know what to do, and they just want to feed us with some stories. And at times, after certain things, when we hear your news, we just listen to it because we have nothing to listen to. And at times, we just switch and go to the music playing station. So you guys need to be careful on some of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Collins, you raised 2 points that I want to pick up on. Well, one, overtly, you talked about investigative journalism, but that is not investigative journalism. That is not investigative journalism. That's sensational journalism, because there was nothing to investigate. There was no controversy about whether he was dead or not for you to say, I am showing this picture to show that people are saying he's not dead, but indeed he is dead. There was nothing to investigate. The fact, as Kina has stated, as you indicated, had been established. It also raises issues of privacy. Where should we intrude? You know, what's the limit? The fact that we have technology and technology can do certain things doesn't mean that we necessarily need to do it, because the usual rules that we operate in a civilized society, in a civil society, should operate. There are also journalistic ethics and norms that tell us how to ply our trade in ways that are responsible and in ways that are ethical. And that's important. So I want to also make a point about Evans, people worrying about the fact that people already know in social media. I mean, that's a change that we can't do anything about. These days, we are going to get news first broken on social media because it's more immediate. And it has advantages that traditional media does not have. However, I think that most people rely on traditional media to give it affirmation, credibility, legitimacy, and also context that social media doesn't give. If somebody passes a picture of a lifeless body on social media, what is the real story behind it? That's where you come in. So I don't think that I think traditional media must change how they look at news and not worry so much about we need to break it first, because you cannot always compete with social media. You need to ask, what can we add to this news once we verify that that is true? Because we are the professionals, and the non-professionals who started the social media news don't have the kind of advantage that we have of training and of being able to access the right sources to give the story more depth.
And it's an interesting point you make, and for me, it comes back to an issue I've been thinking about. So, increasingly, social media is the first point of call when it comes to an issue breaking. The question of setting the agenda comes in here for me. The media is supposed to set the agenda. I mean, people you like to come to Joy FM, for example, and on News Now or on Top Story to hear the breaking news story and see what agenda Joy FM is setting on an issue and what is happening. But the reality is, and as Audrey mentioned, social media is giving leads to mainstream media. And we are following the lead of social media. So it's right, she says, they break the news, but then we refine the news. But we didn't originate it. So who is setting the agenda? Okay. So a daily guy fell into that trap. A social media person gets it and sends it on WhatsApp. The agenda's already been set. He looks at it. He didn't send, but he's watched it. And it's gone viral. The guy needs to sell a newspaper. And he's thinking, if it's gone viral and everybody's talking and it's trending on social media and it's trending everywhere else and I need to sell my paper, maybe if I put in my paper, I follow their lead, I can get the same traction.
You want to sell your paper. Kina, I just can't wait for you to react to that last.
So the likes of Kina are now setting the agenda for us.
Can I say something? Can I? First of all, there is no social media person. There are citizens. Any citizen who can, at this point, especially in Ghana, read and write English on some level, who can have access to a computer that is connected or a smartphone or a tablet that is connected, can use social media. So there is no social media person, there are citizens. Now, increasingly, citizens may set the agenda, and that is incredibly empowering. Yeah. I can go on Twitter right now, and I can decide, okay, right now I want to talk about education in Ghana, and I can have a series of tweets that will go around Africa, and people can be, and they do this all the time. Oh, this sounds like just like, I can start a conversation. That is what citizens are doing. Now, because traditional media do not, and I'm going to be very harsh, and Audrey says I shouldn't generalize. What is your purpose in having a media organization? Is it to inform Ghanaians? And if your purpose is to inform Ghanaians, how and with what context? Let me say that, unfortunately for Ghana, our problems never change, right? Most of our problems are never solved, right? But in fact, that is fortunate for media organizations, because you can actually decide that in December of 2014, I'm going to have a whole series on water. If you really want to be irresponsible, you can say, I'm going to report it in such a way that I'm going to inflame Ghanaians. Guess what? If you did your show and you had all your experts or non-experts and whatever, come December, what you put on will be topical. It will generate citizen discussion. We may even be talking about it on social media. So when you tell us increasing, and it's as though the people want to criticize, traditional media whines all the time about social media. And in a way, I feel like they want to penalize citizens. We actually go on and talk about these issues in part because we are not only wanting to discuss it, we are looking for experts to discuss it with us, because traditional media in Ghana actually does not cover the stuff we want to talk about.
Excellent. We'll come back to that because that's such an important point. And off-air, Collins, you had raised that as well, the ability of traditional media to follow up on stories so that we, pick up on some of the issues that you're most interested in. And so the point Evans makes, does it bother you that traditional media no longer sets the agenda? Does it bother you that traditional media says we're justified in some of what we do because we need to sell?
I said something. Most of these WhatsApps and other things are for entertainment. Some of the things that we see, we use it to entertain, the pictures and other things. So when something breaks on WhatsApp or Twitter or something, we just read it. But you see me coming, my jaw online, to confirm.
Yes.
So, because we know that the traditional media has certain level of credibility. So, the fact that somebody has sent me something, then I'll start consuming it and using it. No, we don't do that. Recently, one of your colleagues, when he passed on, and a friend called, Collins, have you heard this? Then I said, what? Then he mentioned Pabla or something. Then I said, quickly, before I'll say yes or no, let me check my Joy Online. I went there was nothing there. So I started calling friends that I know.
And I'm sure you checked BBC too, and there was nothing there.
There was nothing there.
And that's a good point to make, precisely for the good reasons that Evans mentioned, is that there's family behind every death.
And here I want to say that my friend set the agenda, who is not a media person. But I wasn't taking his words that because he's saying it, because he was even asking, have you heard? So I will not just, so the media, when the Twitters and the other things set the agenda, go behind the story and come and give us the credible results that your consumers want to consume, or that will help the society. Rather than they set the agenda, the picture is there, you also want to sell your paper, you just put it in, whether back page, front page, middle page, it doesn't give. And again, in marketing, it is not you getting to the market first. It is how you enter the market and how impactful you're going to be.
Great.
So don't rush to the market, just you want to sell your paper. At a time will come that nobody will buy your paper because we'll just say that you are not credible. And you know that most of these newspapers and other things, people don't buy them.
Yes.
Can I example, like the Malcolm. For instance, the Malcolm building collapse, right? A building collapse. Now, what citizens on social media are good for, they can get to the scene or somebody will be there, take a picture. Now, the Malcolm collapse, was such a, I want to use the word fantastic, event, not in a good way. In the ways in which it impacted local governments, laws, buildings, which the building industry, which we all know are booming in Ghana, emergency services, compensation to victims, victim sympathy. It covered all of these things, right? What social media can do for you, and that's what citizens do. We'll get you the picture. I remember somebody even had a picture of the building, and they did a juxtaposition of the then and now, right? What social media cannot do, but this is the responsibility of journalists, is to cover and give us even an in-depth analysis of how the Malcolm building comes to collapse, how the collapse may be symptomatic of what is happening in all these areas, giving of permits, but how the collapse is also unique to that particular set of people and events around that building.
And can I add to that?
Which we don't get.
No, can I add to that? And also, listen, and also what traditional media can do is then to go get interviews from the relevant people, hold those people who should be doing ABCD accountable, and force them to talk to citizens and live up to their promises. That's what traditional media can do.
And all that we do all the time, and we do exceedingly, abundantly, more than you can ever ask or think of. All that you've said. In the Malcolm case, we did that. I did that. My colleagues did that. And you remember, we did an interview on the back of that with the AMA chief executive. And clearly, he had failed because ultimate responsibility lies at his doorstep. Yes. Will you resign? Was the last question I asked him, which flared him up. He didn't talk to multimedia for a long time because he believed we started probing into areas that he felt were unjustified. But let me make some more controversial points because I thought it's important. I've heard the citizen, the listener, talk about, we want the thing that will inform us, the thing that will enlighten. Exactly, will enlighten us. She's also talked about it. In education. But Audrey, I need to make this point that when you go to journalism school, they teach you that the media's role is to educate, entertain, and inform. That has changed. In 2014, the sole goal of any commercial media organization is attract and hold large audiences for advertisers. The means to
that used to be the traditional role too, because media has always needed to give the audience to the consumers in order. So that is traditional. It's not new.
No, I'm making a point.
But it does not stop them from the traditional.
So the point I was going to make, how it's changed in 2014 is this. In the past, when we had GTV alone operating, they did all this developmental stuff, okay? And that was their means to get into that end. But today, we have, and Kina before we came on there was talking about something that was very interesting, and I want to introduce that. The mass market is dominated by tree-speaking stations. Mass market, okay? If you look at the monthly listenership, they are doing more than 50% of the market share, sometimes 80, 70%.
Yes.
Is tree, right? But you go to listen to the tree news, okay? Would you say that it satisfies all the professional and ethical injunctions that you need to have to make a news credible?
Okay.
No.
Yet, they still have the biggest market. They get all the adverts. The question is why?
Okay, hang on right there. The question is why. The fact that the tree-speaking stations are just like the English-speaking stations. They are professional journalism organizations that have to uphold the ethics and the professional norms of the industry. The issue, therefore, is not that how come they get away with it, because actually they do not. They are also criticized. And the regulators also take issue with them. In fact, the National Media Commission some time back did a whole guideline for them. Implementing it is different.
The regulatory aspect. I'm talking about audience.
Yes, I'll come to that. I will come to that. The audience, no, I'm coming to that. Let me land. The audience tune in, not necessarily because they like their ethics, but because they can understand them better. Okay? They speak in the language that they are comfortable with, not with English language, because we have issues about language here. So there are complex reasons why the audience tunes in. But even the fact that the audience tunes in is not enough for us to decide that. Then it's okay, anything goes, because the audience likes you anyway. Because sometimes we ourselves need to educate the audience about what society needs to develop. Again, in terms of news and information.
Because of the language, the marketer will look at what segment of the market that they need to feed. Okay, so you see that there are certain products that will not attempt to come to Joy FM to advertise because the market they are looking at are not listeners of Joy. Listen, I once told my wife that, look, if you want to laugh during newscasting, listen to certain radio stations. But if 12 noon, 6 p.m., I don't listen to those radio stations because at times you will be in the office the whole day. When you come out of that big building, you want to hear what is happening outside. Okay. We are still in Accra, but you want to listen to what is happening outside. Mm-hmm. So I'll not tune in to those news. That one word, they can use 3 hours to mention that. 2 hours news you didn't hear. So if an advertiser wants me, they will come to you. And they scan the market. So don't just say they have large following and therefore you also just follow the
And on that note, I know we'll pick this point up when we come back, but we need to go for a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. We're back and we're continuing our conversation. And one of the points I wanted to make actually in our discussion was that we've made assumptions about social media breaking news first. But it's not every news they break that is accurate. And we remember in this country that in the middle of the night, at dawn actually, people came out of their homes because somebody had sent a text message saying that there was an earthquake going to hit. I saw the social media message and I said to myself, is this true? And you know what I did? I tuned into Joy FM, so that by the time a friend called me and says, there's this thing, I said, oh, Joy says it's not credible. And so I, unlike many Ghanaian citizens, had a good night's rest. Social media is not always accurate. In fact, there's a lot of rumor, there's a lot of misinformation on social media. That is why we rely on credible news organizations like Joy to confirm or deny.
Yeah. Absolutely, and it comes back to the point I was making, an unpopular point I was making earlier about how social media is leading the way. But you cannot take away the role that the traditional media must play in the equation. Because without traditional media, it will be all gossip and nothing confirmed.
Precisely.
It's going to be gossip, you know. Although the fact is sometimes the institutions themselves that are the custodian of the information that we use as media, they don't go to the traditional media to break it, they go to the social media. So sometimes news, credible, authentic news is broken on social media. For example, I noticed that recently that the American Embassy, they have a very active Twitter page. And when they're doing something, say that something has happened in Ghana and they are involved in negotiations, they'll put the information up there first. And that is authentic because it's coming directly from the source. So there is a balancing act you need to do. It's not fair to say that every news on social media is gossip, but it depends on who is saying it and from where it's coming from. But a very important point.
Oh, no, hang on 1 minute because I'll come to you on that, yes.
Yes.
Go on.
I wanted to state, though, that it comes back to regulating this space that has become a monster.
We'll come back to the regulating the space. However, he makes the point about people choosing to post credible information on social media, on the internet, which is great, which brings me to a point that I hope you address in your response, is social media literacy.
Yes,
you know, because people need to know how do I sift through the information as a citizen and determine which social media information or even site or blogger is credible.
Yes. First of all, I think, and that's a good term, social media literacy. I come back to that, what I state, that there are no social media people. There are citizens and organizations and any manner of groups who use social media. And it's just a platform to give information and talk. Okay, so in that respect, people shouldn't assume that whatever sense you have, and I hate the term common sense, okay, but whatever you've developed in your own life when it comes to gathering information, you don't suddenly stop those things because you came on social media. So, for instance, I will not go and buy all the newspapers that are printed in Ghana every single morning, right? Maybe I'll buy the Daily Graphic and one other, okay? Because maybe I don't trust the other people. Likewise, if I go to the marketplace or somewhere and I know this woman gossips, this man gossips, this person has good news, it's all about, it's a mixture. If you are doing social media and you are really interested in informing yourself, it's a mixture of individuals and organizations and other groups who share information that you are interested in and whom you can trust. You can even have people you follow that you know you can't trust, but they say fun things and you want to follow them. So if, for instance, there is an earthquake advisory, first of all, who gives earthquake advisories in Ghana? So you see, if it's in the Daily Graphic and it comes from, I think we have a meteorological society, but there has to be something that must link to what authority is mandated to give us that information. We know that as people anyway when we pick up the newspaper. This we don't lose when we are on social media. That's number one. Number two, you have to trust where your information is coming from. And I think that there are lots of people who just press the forward button and press the forward button and press the forward button. And the thing about social media, for some like WhatsApp and all those things, you may lose control of the type of information that is coming onto your stream, right? Because I always beg people, pay attention before on Twitter you retweet. They say things like retweet is not an endorsement. I never understand what that means. And on WhatsApp, pay attention before you send the information. This information that has come to you, must you forward it? And if you are part of the sensationalizing chain, you have to stop yourself because basically you are just gossiping. And there's nothing wrong with gossip as long as you understand you are gossiping and there's no danger somebody was going to take your gossip as fact. So there is that. We have to be careful, just like how you wouldn't, I say that you wouldn't just go out there into the street, pick any random person and believe what they have to tell you. We don't do that. And it's the same on social media. Be careful who you allow to follow. Use the block button. People do not use their block button or their unfollow button or whatever it is. Block people. You see somebody who says something you don't like, block them, get rid of them. It's not a by force master and it is not a popularity context. And if you are following people for whom it's so important for them to be popular, at some point, that person who wants to be so popular, that person is going to do something egregious, unfollow them. People have a lot more control over the information they get on social media and the information they put out.
Okay, the social media expert says people have a lot more control over what they consume and what they disseminate from social media.
If you see something, report them. You see, I don't use WhatsApp, but I'm wondering, that first picture, the person who got that first picture of Mr. PV Obeng, that was something that should have been reported.
Actually,
report infringement.
Actually, we're going to deal with regulation in a minute. I just want...
think the audience are part of the problem.
But everybody is.
But
everybody is. You know, everybody is. And I think that what's exciting about this new information age that I like actually is that it is not top down anymore. It is not controlled anymore. It's meant to be more participatory. Yes. And everybody must check themselves, because it's very easy for citizens to say, you journalists are misbehaving. How about them? How are they behaving when they too use social media? So, citizen, what's your take?
My take is the social media is just it's like a forum to converse. And at school, those times, you could go and sit somewhere. We will do the Toli thing, jokes and other things. Do you take those jokes that we were saying back at school as the truth? No.
But sometimes serious information is put on social media.
Good.
And we use it for very important
it serious. Truths. It becomes serious when the traditional media have gone behind and add credibility to it.
I don't mean to catch you, but that's not necessarily true. People have social media, serious organizations and persons have social media pages. You have a Facebook page, you put serious information on, you tweet, you put serious information on, you expect people to take it seriously. So it's not always trivial.
He was on Twitter, right? He's on Twitter. He said, before we started the show, we're talking about procurement.
Yes.
And I see that he has lots of information. So if he was on Twitter and he was talking about procurement, if he decided to give us a lecture, however long, on procurement, I'll take it seriously. Yes. Likewise, if you were on Twitter and you started to talk about the media, you told me, especially women in media and gender roles in media, and all those things, women in anything, I would take you seriously. It comes back to the person who we have to be careful, just like anywhere else, in whom we follow, whom we are allowed to, sort of like, you have to be diligent.
I absolutely agree.
Yes.
And one word on that, and we're moving to regulation before we run out of time, because it's such an important
point. She just said it. If you get the information, you know where it is coming from. Even in Google, when you are doing a research and you Google a topic and you think because you found it on Google, you use it, you might be having a problem.
Absolutely.
You see, even our children, they go to school, they hear something, they want confirmation from their parents.
Yes.
Or they want confirmation from their teachers because they believe in them. So the fact that WhatsApp has dropped, Facebook, whatever, as a citizen, you need to know where it is coming from before you agree with it, or you just take it as one of the jokes.
And so they want confirmation, they want to know from their parents, and in the context of our discussion, from the traditional media, whether it's authentic. And sometimes that fails, Evans, whether you like it or not.
Because they are
sometimes
also social media citizens.
Absolutely fails.
They are competing, you see.
They think that they have to compete.
Traditional media shouldn't feel like they should compete with social media. That is wrong.
Yes.
And they will lose.
Yes.
And in losing, we will be misinformed.
So let us shift this conversation to regulation. How should we regulate the way traditional media uses social media, as ridiculous as that sounds, to Kina, who is making a face? But also, Kina, I'll ask you, how should we regulate social media? And I just, last week, there was an uproar in the international media because Instagram had taken down pictures of some celebrities. And people said, it's freedom of expression. And people say, nonsense. I don't want my teenager looking at that crap. Okay? So, Evans, what shall we do?
Well, For me, there are two angles to approach this. First is the ethical codes of injunction, and then you can use the law. That attached to that, obviously, will be strict punishments. Let's start with the ethical codes of injunction. This is where I need to raise the point about how outdated the GJA Code of Ethics is. It's so outdated. I was reading this morning. I haven't read it for more than 10 years since I graduated from the GIJ.
Oh, shame on you.
I haven't, because ethics today is not the same as ethics yesterday, precisely because of social media, because it's changed. Let me read the preamble of the GJA Code of Ethics. It says, the GJA Code of Ethics has been drawn up as a ready guide and is applicable, and I want to emphasize that, to members of the association in the state-owned media, members of the association in the state-owned media, private media, and local freelance journalists. Now, that has no room for the social media. Has no room for a Kina, who is a blogger, who operates primarily in the blogger sphere. Has no room for the person who decides that, well, the only place I want to operate in the public sphere is social media. It has no place.
No, but can I interrupt you for 1 minute? On that particular point, and on the point of Kina, is the Ghana Journalists Association's Code of Ethics. So it can only apply to journalists.
No, I understand
It's not their place to have a code of ethics for bloggers. They can only address how journalists...
No, but DJ.
Yeah, okay, maybe you are.
But Audrey, that's the point. That is the point. But Audrey, that's the point I was going to make fundamentally.
Yeah.
That isn't it time you redefine who the member...
Who is a journalist?
Exactly. It comes back to the same argument. But it's most importantly at this time, in 2014, when traditional media is succumbing to the pressures of... And look... I'm coming, and I just make this point because all the international media, the big one, BBC, CNN, they are doing a huge migration, bringing in social media content to drive what they do.
Absolutely.
And that is why Joy FM and you have been part of this project.
Yes.
We brought on Ghana Connect.
Yes.
A good
BBC now has what they call outside source.
Yes.
And BBC outside source is moved from refined news to we are yet to confirm, but we are putting it out nonetheless, which is what they do now. And we just saw this tweet. Somebody had just tweeted.
Yeah, but they still sift, though, to make sure, because they are liable. In fact, you are much more endangered than that nebulous citizen in the blogosphere.
I need to give you an example of BBC again. Yeah. Since it started outside, so they've had several bumps in the road. And that is what you have. Yes. I'll give you two examples. When the Ukrainian thing started, it was circulating in the blogosphere and social media that, they've seen Russian troops in Ukraine. And they reported it as Russian troops until Vladimir Putin held a press conference and said, those people are not Russian troops. They are people in uniform who look like us. Quickly, and they had done the news on top of the hour. By the time they came to the half-hour news, they had changed the language from Russian troops to militants who look like Russian troops. That is the point I'm making. So it's time for the GJA, acknowledging this graduation, to sit back and say, how do we reform the GJA constitution, first of all, to redefine who become a member? And I'm happy. Yeah. He says they are associate members. Right. So if that is true, this code of ethics needs to change. Secondly, let's talk about the legal angle. And I'm happy because our courts, I think, are very progressive. This year alone, and I need to make this before I make that point, the rules that govern the mainstream media, if you're listening to this and watching, it's now beginning to apply to you in social media, in the blogosphere. Don't think that you can go there and have no responsibility and do what you like. And let me give you two cases to illustrate my point. This year alone, 2 guys have gone to jail at least for 6 months because they chose to publish stuff on Facebook that has been prosecuted successfully and they have been jailed. One decided simply to publish nude pictures of his girlfriend on social media, thinking, well, it's social media, nobody can hold him responsible. Eventually, they prosecuted him successfully. He's gone in for 18 months. Months later, a similar case happened. The guy has already been jailed for 6 months. In other words, when you read the GJ Code of Ethics, part of it talks about obscenity, respecting the person's dignity and privacy. That is what the court now is enforcing.
Yes.
With a legal injunction that requires that you go to jail. If I break this law, maybe the DJ can call me and sit down and reprimand me. Maybe somebody can choose to sue me for libel defamation. But when you're on social media, the strict rule is that if you do it, now that has been passed, becomes a precedent. Precedents, we know, form part of the law, and so you're not escaping. And for me, that's why I think now the law is progressing. I've had legal luminaries like Asan Kumar suggest that it's time now to bring the rulings to Parliament and try to codify it properly and make it binding so people know.
Great. Kina, what do you think? We ought to have more regulation of social media because they can cause as much harm, if not more harm, than traditional media. And traditional media has to operate within a certain code of ethics and also within the legality of the law. Why not people who use social media?
When it comes to offensive and criminal behavior, harmful behavior on social media, it falls into several camps. One is harm done to children. Children are a particular concern in terms of being given access to pornographic material, bullying, and actual insult and abuse. So, and in fact, the bullying aspect is particularly worrying because a lot of young people now live their lives online, and in the West, people have been known to commit suicide from bullying. So there's that aspect. Then there's also, in terms of adults, what we call trolling. People get accounts, and then their whole intention is to insult somebody, make somebody feel terrible. But then there's also like misinformation, like he's saying. And during the Egyptian, what do they call it? The
uprising.
There were, the Muslim Brotherhood, between the Muslim Brotherhood and those who are partial to the army position, there are three groups. They send out all sorts of, they can blow up numbers of dead and all that. So, in terms of where children are concerned, there are two areas. One is that the laws do exist, protection of children. And then there's also the parental issue, but we'll put that aside. And on a lot of social media platforms, there's already regulation. There are tools. Block them, report them. What is particularly disturbing is I hear that some of the images, when you put an image, let's say a pornographic image of child pornography, and you ask that it be deleted. Sometimes it stays in the Facebook database for a very long time. So yeah, the regulation exists. But also, the citizens that are on social media, you see, it would be nice if people were alert. Right now on Twitter, you can't do anything against a feminist and people will come after you. So, or you will circulate child pornography and people will report you. So on social media, there are groups that regulate what the content that is there in terms of, and they regulate by just reporting, blocking, reporting as spam, right? But when we go back to the picture of the late Mr. P.V. Obing, the era didn't begin on WhatsApp. It began with the lapses in the hospital institution. That's where somebody got access to his body and somebody took a picture. So once it's on social media, just like what the judge did in the case of the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend, the law needs to go after, do some investigation as to who put this out. For instance, I hardly follow celebrities, but there was this incident of Jay-Z's sister-in-law assaulting him. It was a clear case of assault in an elevator. And it was a hotel, privately owned, and the person released the video. In fact, sold the store, yes. The company did their own investigation. The person has been fired. But
he made a lot of money.
But he made lots of money, but he's been fired. You see what I'm trying to say? In this case, the criminal law, and it is an offense, isn't it, occurred in a government institution. Now, it would have been nice if the government itself, and Mr. P.V. Obing is a member, all governments, we adore him. Everybody thinks he's wonderful. Take the extra step, figure out, do some investigation. Who took this picture? Reprimand the person. Because otherwise...
fire the person.
Fire the person, thank you.
It is unprofessional, unethical, and plain wrong.
And also, people must, you see, on social media, once the laws are there, it's about enforcement, right? Enforcement by the people, the company, the one that has a platform, in terms of providing the tools, and then being timely and fast once the citizens start to complain. So that's the first level of regulation. But the most important aspect of regulation has to do with the citizens themselves. You receive something that is bad, speak up. Because if you see, people must pause, like I keep saying, and look at what is happening and say, is this right? Does this harm? Yeah. I'm going to report them. Even if it's your friend.
Yes.
I block people who I am friends with in real life.
Yes.
When they say something that upsets me, I block them. Yes. I have no problems with it. It's not a party I'm about to have on social media. Yes. This is about information. Yes. And there are stuff that comes that may harm myself and I may not want to hear.
Yes.
So that is where regulation comes in. But I want to say one last thing about parents. Mm-hmm. You know, technology and social media, it's a tool. It's something you must learn. It's about literacy. Just like how a parent will not give an ABC book to a child and say, here, learn your ABCs, and hopefully one day you will know how to spell cat. We take children through school, and they learn a language. And platforms and technology and the web and social media, it is a communication tool and it is a language. Yeah. So if parents think that somehow their kids are not going to have access, pick up your phone and press and not pick these things up because they are smart, they are kidding. So the person who must first introduce a child to technology is the parents. You must at all stage, because you see, you cannot say, it's so harmful, I'm not going to allow my teenager to do it. They're going to do it. But
it's part of their lives.
It's part of their lives. But you want to teach them, you want to walk them through it, and you want every step that they take, you are aware of it, you actually anticipated, you go online. I go online with my kid, and we have a lot of fun.
But, Kina, can I add one more thing? It also does mean that parents themselves must be responsible in how they use social media, because some of them are not.
Yes.
You pick somebody's tablet or phone, and there are terrible. I had a friend who was showing, WhatsApp, all kinds of things on WhatsApp, and there was one that was particularly graphic. I said, no, don't forward it to me, because I don't want my daughter to pick up my phone and see this. Don't forward it to me.
But I want to address the last point about. Yes, Blogging Ghana is an associate member of GJ. In fact, I think that in order for the space to thrive, we do not want it to be like a kind of a frontier. Yeah. You see, we want it to be more normal in people's lives. And in order for it to be normalized, it must be safe. We must be governed by all the rules. And people, because if you misinform, we are all going to get misinformed. You see what I'm trying to say? But I want to say that a lot of media institutions are finding a really interesting way of dealing with social media. They source information, and I can imagine that if you are really a news organization interested in informing people, I don't even see a competition. I see social media as 100% tool.
As complementing information. But let's come to the citizen as well. And I know that, you use social media. I see a tablet right there. What do you tell your children about how to use social media and how to discern and places they shouldn't be going to?
Well, at times you don't need to tell them where they shouldn't go, because most of times, whether you tell them or not, they may go when you are not there. So you have these passwords and other things to make sure that when you are not there, they cannot even access your iPad or whatever, so that anytime you give them your gadgets, you are around to check what they are looking at. Because I have a boy, if you give it to him, and if he's even standing behind you, and you put in your password, the next time you see him on. It was through him that I got to know that even if your iPhone is off, okay, you have the password on, there's a place that he can put up and take pictures. Oh yes. There's a knob there. You just put it up with your password or whatever. He can take pictures. Yes. So I saw certain pictures on my phone, and I said, but this phone, I've locked it. Okay. So is you putting regulations around when they have to use your gadget, or when you even give them mobile phone, when you even give them access to the internet. If you are not there, you make sure the laptop, the desktop that you've bought for them is closed. If mommy is there, they can use it for their homework. Now in homework, they will say, Daddy, I want to Google. They go pick their own. So if you are not there.
But you can't always be there. But there are, of course, realistic ways in which you can do it. You can put filters and blocks on.
But also, I want to say that there's so much online, and part of why children get into danger is also because we, the parents, haven't investigated the diversity of educational tools that are also fun to point them out to, so they know of. Children are always spying on what we are doing. So you have to also take the time and investigate what is available and what is fun. Because he's saying he's saying use it for a homework. That is incredibly boring. Yeah. But we use the internet for entertainment.
Yeah.
So what I tend to do is, there's the other day, my son and my mother and I were talking about earthquakes. And I said, earthquakes, and he's like, yeah. So we had a whole conversation, and then we went to look at Google, and we looked at pictures,
yes.
And it was incredibly fun.
Yes.
So make it part of your family conversation. When your child asks you, Mommy, what's a tornado? And you're like, oh, I'm so exhausted. You're like, let's Google a tornado.
Yes.
Let's make it fun for kids, because primarily the internet is a source of entertainment and information for adults, and we need to make it a source of safe entertainment and information for children.
And perhaps this is a very good way to wind up, because we've had a conversation. We started with the traditional media and how they use social media, and we're ending with media literacy, which is incredibly important also, and how we can teach our kids to be safe when they use social media and responsible when we use social media. It's the kind of conversation we could continue to have over and over again, and perhaps we will do a follow-up at some other time. But right now, we want to say thank you very much for being our guests tonight and watching and listening to us. And I want to thank my other panelists, Evans Mensah from Joy FM, Kina Likimani from Blogging Ghana and Imbasem, and Collins, who is a procurement specialist. Thank you all very much, and see you next time.
Thank you.